Adam and his father moved through the streets of town. The older man knew it was time to get his son a proper weapon. Oh, he had trained him with wooden practice blades, but not with one of his own. Adam was nearly an adult. It was time he had one. The two stopped before a large shop. As soon as they opened the door, a wave of heat washed over them. It was stifling. Adam could barely breathe before the inferno within. The rhythmic clash of metal greeted them from the back. A hideous and massive man stood before the forge working his craft. He beat an iron ingot into the shape he wanted with his heavy hammer. "Greetings, Hephaestus." Only when he heard Adam's father did the blacksmith turn around. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today, we look at another of the infamous Greek pantheon, the blacksmith god Hephaestus. There are many forces of nature which influenced early human life. Probably the most influential was the mastery of fire. Prior to that, they couldn't sterilize meat and had only the most limited of craftsmanship, crude stone tools and tanned hides. But then fire was conquered. No longer was it a deadly threat to avoid, but a force which spurred humanity forward. That opened up the start of pottery, and in time, metal. First copper, then copper mixed with tin for bronze, and copper with zinc for brass. The discovery of bronze was what brought about the full end of the Stone Age. Copper is a fairly soft metal, and heavier than bronze, making it less usable in many tasks, but still better than others. So, of course, humanity would create gods of the forge. And in ancient Greece, there was Hephaestus, or Vulcan in Rome. He was the god of the flame, blacksmiths, and craftsmen. He forges the divine weapons for the rest of Mount Olympus. Now, his origins have become cloudy with the retelling by numerous scholars. In all of them, he is the child of Hera. In Hesiod's Phylogeny, Hera conceives the child without Zeus, in spite of his many affairs. Yet Hephaestus was born ugly, with a lame leg, and Hera chucks the baby away. In Homer's Odyssey, Hephaestus was stated to be Zeus's child. When Zeus goes for Hera one night, baby Hephasestus moves to protect his mother, and Zeus slaps the child off Mount Olympus, and that resulted in Hephaestus' deformed leg. Regardless of which, baby Hephaestus falls for over a day and lands in the ocean, and Thetis, mother of Achilles, finds him. Sometimes he is taken to the island of Lemnos to be raised and taught by the Sintians. These people were often referred to as pirates and raiders by the ancient Greeks. The story of Hera rejecting Hephaestus does make more sense with these next parts. Hephaestus grew vengeful of his mother and prepared a golden throne for her. She doesn't recognize the grown man as he presents the throne to her, and she greedily sits on the throne, and she can't get out, trapped and bound there. Boldly he declares that he has no mother, and leaves. The gods are frustrated and need Hephaestus to return, and he refuses. Ares is sent to take him by force and fails. So Dionysus, god of wine, made an attempt. Rather than force, he tries drink. In time, Dionysus brings Hephaestus back on the back of a donkey, blackout drunk and escorted by revelers. With Hephaestus back on Olympus, Zeus and the gods sought to free Hera. Poseidon offers Hephaestus to marry Athena, one of the three virgin goddesses. After all, Hephaestus was the one who split Zeus's head to birth Athena in some tales. That's a weird story too. When Hephaestus went to consummate the wedding, Athena ran away as Hephaestus ejaculated. It ended up on the earth and impregnated Gaia, goddess of the earth, who gave birth to Erytheneus. In another version, the semen landed on Athena's leg. She would wipe it away with some wool before discarding it haphazardly on the ground, with the same result. Regardless, Athena would eventually adopt Erytheneus. But this ended the planned marriage between Hephaestus and Athena. Instead, the plan was made for him to marry Aphrodite. And she's a filthy two-timing hoe. Aphrodite cheats on Hephaestus. Eventually, the sun god Helios tells the blacksmith god. Now, what do you think the smith did? He made a trap, a net so thin that it was invisible, and laid it out to trap the two cheaters naked. He dragged them up to Mount Olympus to be publicly shamed. The outcome resulted in Zeus paying back Aphrodite's dowry, and either Ares or Poseidon being forced to pay an affair fee. Depending on the source, either Aphrodite seduces her way back to Hephaestus, but in others, he instead remarries to Charis, another goddess. With Charis and other women, he had several other children. But Hephaestus does appear elsewhere. Some say it was him who created Pandora, which opened her infamous box. Now, Pandora was said to be the first of all human women, which does create an issue if Hephaestus lived with the Sintians, which does point back to more divine intervention amongst the gods. Regardless, this does show his talent in other mediums beside metal, since he made her from earth, which does beg the question, could he have modeled Pandora after his then wife Aphrodite? That could explain why Epimetheus was quickly smitten when presented with this woman. He built many things over the years, from legendary weapons and armor, chariots and fountains. But there is one I do want to speak of, his automatons. Yes, he was recorded creating early machine figures, which aided in his work. Though some say he was aided by Daedalus in their construction. Several different models in fact. Some were human, others animals, yet others have wheels. One stands out though, and that is Talos. This was a metal man that was gifted to Europa, Queen of Crete, said to be invulnerable, except for a vein in his ankle that ran up to his head. He stopped pirates and raiders. He did so by throwing boulders at them. Such impressive strength. Yet a simple grazing wound from one of Medea's curses was enough to slay him. Though you will find sources saying that Talos was from a race of bronze people. So, as always, not perfectly clear. There is disagreement on who made Zeus's thunderbolts. Some say Hephaestus, but others Cyclopses. It wouldn't be impossible for both to be true. First the Cyclopses, and then Hephaestus taken over. Now, you're probably wondering why Hephaestus has his malformed appearance. Well, that deals with the nature of blacksmithing back then. Most bronze is made using copper and tin, but there is also arsenic bronze. Whether done intentionally or not, arsenic is mixed with the copper. Now, arsenic is toxic if you didn't know, and can lead to a whole host of issues and problems, including deformities. Now, Hephaestus came about during the Iron Age, so the idea of blacksmiths being deformed was from earlier stories influencing the next age. This does tie back to his role as god of volcanoes. Gases would seep from the ground around, which led to hallucinations, and many believed visions, leading to its divine belief. As understandings grew and discovery of the volcanoes nearby, they found themselves tied to Hephaestus. The use of fire in forging quickly enhances the connection. There is another connection. Hephaestus has gotten into fights, usually against giants. He had a couple of tactics he used, Most notable was throwing molten iron onto the giants, which resulted in severe burns, but ultimately Hephaestus was forced to flee. Now, he isn't perfect. Due to Ares and Aphrodite's tryst, there was a child called Harmonia. On her wedding day to Cadmus, she was given a necklace from Hephaestus. Sadly, he had cursed it, which spread through the generations, which eventually led to the tragedy of Oedipus. In a fancy setting with Hephaestus, any adventurer would seek his favor. Seriously, just look at all he has made. Weapons carried into battle by numerous heroes, chariots and armor. The full list of his creations is astounding. I can guarantee that you would find a few things that you would have use for. Something I would look at is the armor of Achilles. Nigh invulnerability can't be ignored. The chariot of Helios offers speed and mobility to get about. The invisible net he used to snag the adulterers would be useful too. Gods can't escape it. Above that, there is Talos. He stopped a fleet of pirates alone. That means an extra party member, and a powerful one at that. Oh, and Zeus's lightning bolts are great too. Hephaestus is a skilled combatant, but that isn't his forte. So, in a fancy world with real gods, how would that change the temples of Hephaestus? Well, a lot. On Earth, most temples collect various goods as offerings, oversee ceremonies and so forth. But in a world that the roles of gods are clear-cut, well, for the smithing god, his temples would be forges and foundries. They would take donations of ore, ingots, and other materials. The clerics may be smiths. So rather than white robes, suit-covered overalls may be their garbs. So rather than slight figures studying text, there would be muscular builds with callous hands. They could also form a sort of market business, popular with adventurers and labor workers. There would be loud and hot temples with people coming and going. The altars could be furnace-shaped with flames in them. But that could create issues with other religions, particularly those tied to conflict with Hephaestus. Say the adulterous ones, Ares, god of war, being an issue. Soldiers need weapons. But would the priests of Hephaestus prepare weapons for them? Divine conflicts could really impede a war. This is one of the problems which will arise with the oversized egos of gods. Wouldn't you agree? Hephaestus had an interesting life. Rejected by his mother, he took revenge, but had trouble dealing with the goddesses and the politics of Olympus. Mind you, I challenge anyone to handle that many massive egos all in one place. Regardless, his creativity is impressive. Weapons and tools, all the way to complex machines and figures. Truly, he is a master of his art. Sweat ran down Adam's face from the heat in the room as he watched the smith work. Blow after blow he went. His gaze never shifted from the glowing metal. In time, his work finished, and Adam received his first real weapon. He held it in his hands. The grip was new, but it felt natural. After all, it was made for his hands. Perfectly balanced. It was perfect, that he was sure. Though the weight of it sitting on his belt was new, and would take time to adjust to it, and the responsibility that came with it. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next time for Yamato no Orochi. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.